On September 11th, 2025, Beth Ann Hart is an activist, a Shahidi activist, in a Forbes interview on how she felt about her world right now. Yara answered honestly by saying she is terrified and would like a plan to fix it. I empathize in that no one should have to live in fear. In my opinion, this sounds like a plea for help. I'd like to help, but how? When Yara Shahidi was younger, she did an equality speech on October 19, 2018 at the Gleason Respect Awards. I argue the speech is the hypothesis to fix her world and to reduce her fear. In April 2024, I published my book on Amazon based on this hypothesis, showing that prevention will lead to equity and that equity will lead to equality. This hypothesis will fix the political, economic, and social problems in her world and our world. This nonprofit, not edited channel is a letter to Yara Shahidi and teaching Yara's hypothesis to the public in order to better our world. In the end, Yara Shahidi will get the Nobel Peace Prize for her hypothesis. Sorry, fumbling the words. Dear Yara Shahidi, Chapter 20, Immigration Equality, Part 2. Long chapter. As for the leader of North Korea, he is just not going to stand by and let his people leave. Since he took office, it has been harder for refugees to leave North Korea. Again, if anybody leaves North Korea, then they are killed. The leader of North Korea will do everything in his power to keep all the people under his control. He will try and fail because no one can control 25 million people all at once, especially if there is a better life in South Korea. Getting all those people across the border is going to take a while, like with bribes and negotiations. At first, there will be an underground railroad, so to speak, like in the Civil War, get North Koreans out, and then hopefully there will be a mass exodus to South Korea. As for China, the United States forces China's hand. If the U.S. opens up the DMZ, some people from North Korea will want to go to China to live instead of South Korea, because they will not trust the West from the propaganda the North Korean people have been listening to for decades. I think 70 years now, close to 80, 53. What am I doing? I don't know. China doesn't want refugees or possible deserters from North Korea. Plus, China doesn't trust the United States, as mentioned before. In order to calm China, the U.S. helps China build a new DMZ between North Korea and China. Of course, there has to be a special section to be able to open for when the North Korean leader visits China or hopefully flees to China during the mass exodus of the North Korean people to South Korea. Once the country of North Korea has imploded from the lack of people in their country, or lack of money, or the North Koreans are starving to death in the near future to create a mass exodus to South Korea, then hopefully negotiations can begin to replace the current dictator's administration. One interview from a North Korean defector was that he suggested, since there's a lot of poor people in North Korea and the elites, you flood the system with North Korean currency, and so then everybody's an elite, and so then and inflation is rampant there because everyone's an elite now, and then you open the doors to South Korea, and then and they will take the cash. Start a new life, new apartment, like a transition, like 3 months of food, to get them started, a job, help them, microloan there. And then he said, possibly the Kim Jong-un's daughter, the 13-year-old, who's supposed to supposedly trying to take over the country, is probably going to be the key, because she's more, I don't say innocent, but she's more close in the empathy range for negotiations. I don't think his sister, I guess she's more hardened, close to Kim Jong-un. So I don't think would be the perfect person to negotiate with to help, mediate de-escalating the nuclear option of the nuclear weapons North Korea has, and combining South Korea and North Korea. I mean, they can be a state of the United States if they want to, or be, well, I don't think they would want to, or be a state of South Korea, or be a province of South Korea, or be an equal, or just be like what Germany did with Western Germany, Eastern Germany. They just combined, and then they have, it's one big country. It's probably the best, because their family, not all, well, a lot of them are, have, the ancestry is still there. So it's just a matter of time to, combine. I'm rambling. There's a lot of ideas. So, I mean, these are just a couple of mine. Others are, a person actually lived there, So, yeah. China doesn't want any refugees or possible deserters from North Korea. Plus, China doesn't trust in the United States, as mentioned before. In order to calm China, the United States helps China build a new DMZ between North Korea and China. Of course, there has to be a special section to be able to open for when the North Korean leader visits China, or hopefully flees to China during the mass exodus of the North Korean people to South Korea. Once the country of North Korea has imploded from a lack of people in their country, or lack of money, or the North Koreans are starving to death in the near future to create a mass exodus to South Korea, then hopefully negotiations can begin to replace the current dictator's administration. After this is done, then North Korea will go back to the 25 million people, and the nuclear weapons will be secured and dismantled as soon as possible. To help the North Koreans become part of this 21st century, a mending period is needed for North Korea and South Korea families to get to know each other once again. After this, North and South Korea can be mended together as Eastern and Western Germany did in the late 1980s and 90s. It will take a generation or two, or maybe even three, to undo what so many countries in the past did to this peninsula. I just hope the nations can heal as with the people in time. I think the best route for negotiations is probably contact theory, because there's just so mistrust between, it's 73 years. So, it's so much mistrust. So contact theory will, bend the gaps, build up testosterone, give a social connection, reduce the walls. And then, contact theory was proven in Iraq when they did this soccer match. The Sunni and Shiite were on the same team, and the Kurds. And then what happened was that in Iraq, you have Sunni, on the left side, you have Sunni villages. On the right side, you have Shiite villages. And then if you cross that line, you're asking for trouble. I don't know how bad. I think you're going to get beat up or shot or killed, or, something. It's almost like, gang territory. Don't come to my side or you're going to get shot, or, Bloods, Crips, Pretty much the same thing. Mistrust, What happened in contact theory is that they actually went over the line into each other's territories, the Shia and Sunni, and the Kurds, well, mainly the Shia and Sunni, and they went to each other's houses in the others' districts, and these people have had religious tensions for years, decades, especially under Saddam Hussein, and it worked. Contact theory in Iraq. If you can, for decades. Come on, it worked. It's just, this is on PBS. It's just, and they got together on a soccer game, and they didn't really know each other, but once they got to know each other, from the social connection, again, build up their testosterone, the walls came down. This is within every human. The social connection happened. They were working together on a combined goal, just like you can do from 2 years old to graduation when they're in group work, because they're all working toward that grade, and they know a little bit about the subject area. And if they do multiple subject areas from 2 years old to graduation, over and over and over and over, it becomes so immersion. I mean, it's the immersion that like works. It's the immersion that gets you into that mindset. Oh yeah, I worked with a trans person. Oh yeah, I work with a religious person. That's why Lamana Plus is so crucial, because you start out with, oh yeah, all these categories are, you know, inclusive, just like what Yara Shahidi did at her speech. This is why it's so critical, because you have the basis. You teach this all in the on the classroom from 2 years old to graduation. They're over and over and over and over. Older generations, trans people, gay people, or queer people, lesbians, gay, you know, intersex. I mean, all the colors of the rainbow, Latinos, African Americans, European Americans, Native Americans, Asian Americans, Indian Americans. It's just so, it works. I know, that's what I've been trying to say all this time, and videos are going, you know, up the wazoo. You can end racism. You can get Dr. King's dream. It's all there. And if a person, say, has a bad upbringing with child diversity, then you can use the fMRI to read their minds, especially with psychology intervention from 2 years old to graduation, because it's the beginning of, to the 2 years old is when all the mental health can be turned around. No more mass shooters, no more murderers, no more rapists, no more, you know, all those people, because no one wants to grow up, oh, I want to be all these people. No, they don't. So it's the intervention, it's the prevention. You start, then 2 to 3 generations, then all this goes away. It's just, it's so easy. I mean, it's all there, and these aren't my ideas. I mean, yeah, I found, you know, Yara Shahidi on, you know, The View, and, you know, I researched her, and, you know, I found, you know, her speech, you know, from equity to equality, beautiful. Then I threw in my thing with prevention, what I found. Prevention will lead to equity and to equality. Then the social with mental health, with the contact theory, empathy, ethics, ethics. And then you get the social, political, economic. I mean, almost wiped clean. I mean, you can end wars with empathy. Empathetic people do not go to wars. Genocides. Empathetic people do not go to start genocides, because they have to see the person. Just the sympathy. Just lighting up, just to see the person. That's what contact theory is. With the ethics and with the sympathy, the prefrontal cortex lights up, and they see the person. And then if you get to everybody from the United States, South Korea, if you get to North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Oceania, Antarctica, you get to all 7 continents, then the human race, then you don't have to deal with this North Korea, South Korea stuff anymore. You don't have to deal with insecure men and women who are in power saying, I want to rule the world, I want to rule the world. I mean, these are the people in comic books. You don't want to deal with these people. They go away, because again, the people that went to, like Putin and Xi, they had child adversity. That's why they're there. I need more power, because this will never happen to me again. More, until it's, because then it gets to a certain point, then they have to expand. Well, I have already conquered all of Russia, I already conquered all of China. I mean, what else is there? I need to expand. It's almost like Alexander. Well, I conquered India, I might as well conquer. I mean, he almost ruled the entire world, from, I think it was India to all the way to Europe. Oh, no, sorry. It was all Europe and all the way, almost all the way to India. I mean, how much more land, how much more do you need? I mean, to the point where I can rule the world. No, let's rule the solar system. No, let's rule the Milky Way. Ooh, let's rule Andromeda. Let's go, 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 go. I want a type 4 civilization empire. I want to rule the universe. It's just, how much more is the stupid? This is all Dr. King's dream can be realized now. Now. You give the purpose to the individual, you give the purpose to society. The individual finds what they need. I mean, society finds out why they're here, hopefully to find God. Maybe it doesn't exist, I don't know. I mean, it's all there. I mean, the happiness, sorry, yeah, I didn't include happiness. Just for a relationship, this is very simple. If a man and a woman have the big O, an orgasm, once a week, just once a week, then their relationship is satisfied. They are connected. They are, they have togetherness. They will never cheat. They will never leave. They will never, you don't need the propaganda like, say, of the manosphere or the radical left of the feminism. They connect. There's no, they're equal partnerships because he has a purpose, she has a purpose. If you're in a gay relationship, he, she, non-binary, asexual, same thing. You have a purpose. You have, you exercise, you take care of yourself, you eat right, you don't get any stress. Well, everybody's going to get stressed, but if you sleep right, these things add up to an overall happiness, understanding. You can't achieve happiness. It's a fleeting emotion. It's, you get your dopamine high from the happiness, then it's fleeting. It's almost like what is it? Like a drug high or something. It's just, it's just, God, all this is so simple. I don't know how to more explain it. Maybe if I had better, excuse me, I don't know, understanding of technology, I can, get the more masses listening to this so we can implement this. It's just so simple. God, it's just so simple. Anyways, I'm rambling again. Probably gonna be a long ass video. Okay. I'm just gonna start. This is bleeding a country. The nations of the world sanction the living crap out of a suppressive country to where only food, shelter, supplies, and water are allowed in. In order for a country to operate, the leaders need workers and money to make it operate. If the United States bleeds the people from a country, then the leaders of that country can't acquire money from their people in the form of some sort of tax. Plus, they can't take advantage of their people by putting them to work for little money. The United States and its allies create refugee stations around that suppressive country so that they can handle a mass exodus. I mean, I know I'm going off on a tangent again. The 4 countries in Africa that were taken over, I mean, they were free. Now they're taken over by military guerrillas. It's in West Africa, Western Africa. I think one's Mali. I'm not sure. Anyways, those 4, this could help because they're so suppressed there that if you put stations outside of the country and bleed the people, bleed them, you help them, just like what this paper is all about. you give them a purpose with education, then microloans. Then they take those microloans and help them make a shelter or home with their kids, and they build a little community. Then they start, they build a city and the shelters outside of the country, and then the United States or our allies protect those stations, and you just bleed the country. You put pamphlets. If they have cable, internet, you put your message into, I can't think of it. You break into the cable, you break into the internet, you hack it, thank you. And then you put in the message, you push, if one person of the family is out, you interview them, then, they see it in their language, they see the truth, and then they will, make a exodus out of the country. And then if they trust the allies, the United States, get the UN involved, so so everyone's in on it, so they know what the world is doing to help these people. And if you are successful enough, then the mass exodus comes, you help the people, and then you get rid of the guerrillas. They will probably run away because they don't want to be killed, or they'll go to the other countries. Help me, help me, help me. It takes time, and then exactly what's in this paper, you nation build. You do the same thing what you did with the refugees, so they're used to it, and so when they go back home, they do the same thing from the political, social, and economic. I mean, it's just, we all pretty much want the same thing. It's just, there's, get rid of the soft power, get into the hard power, give these people a winning chance. It's like Iran right now. I'll talk about Iran, but, I'm sorry, I'm just talking. In these refugee stations, there will be the immigration process and education centers like in the United States. The refugees can have the choice to become American citizens, go back to their country of origin, or be sent to another country of their choice. Once the citizens of that country are being taken care of, then the rest is a waiting game for the country to implode. Once the implosion takes place, then negotiations can take place for the ruler to surrender and to be put on trial for their crimes, if there are any. If the negotiations don't work, then the United States Armed Forces and its allies can be called upon to get rid of the unwanted occupier of the country. In any case, bleeding helps to get rid of the dictators and end the wars, for the most part, by not firing a shot. The bleeding of a suppressive country helps the people of that country get rid of a bad leader. The people need help if the leader has been taking advantage of the situation through fear, propaganda, and intimidation. All this means is that the people can be saved if they want to be saved at all. I mean, it is their choice. In the end, justice for a dictator can be achieved without firing a shot. Hopefully, this will be the end of wars as we know it as a human race. Again, empathy. No more wars, no more genocides. That simple. PBS. This is just a highlight of what the United States and its allies can do without occupying a country for decades or hoping a dictator dies to change the bad situation like North Korea. This is a hypothesis in dealing with countries in war in the near future. This hypothesis would need to be put in a situational study by using computer models to see if it is possible or even attainable in real life scenarios. Each situation will be different in dealing with a bad country. If the U.S. and its allies had a country implosion plan, then wars will be played out differently in the near future. Lives of refugees and servicemen and women could be saved on the battlefield, and justice can be given out by putting the bad leader on trial for their crimes. When Russia and the U.S. were in an arms race with nuclear weapons, It was really expensive, but costs are down because the arms race is in check. The president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, wants to show the world today that Russia is still a great power and is not to be messed with. And so this is why he is modernizing his nuclear weapons. With Iran, there are several reasons why they want nuclear weapons. Iran wants to defend against external threats. The Iran part is before Donald Trump invaded Iran with the war. Because my book was published in 2024, April. Yay! I mean, it's still the same, but it's still, things have really changed. With Iran, there are several reasons why they want nuclear weapons. Iran wants to defend against external threats. It fears the nuclear program has become a big issue in Iran's domestic politics. Iran sees itself in a struggle for influence in the region, and a nuclear weapon could help a lot with that. And Iran does not want a bomb to launch an offensive strike against another country. In both cases, Russia and Iran are both wanting to secure themselves more in the world by having more modern nuclear weapons. The best peaceful weapon the United States has against Russia and Iran are sanctions. Sanctions result from executive orders and legislation. Some sanctions target individuals with visa denials and asset freezes, specific companies, while others target the country's economy, like the financial, energy, and high technology sectors. The sanctions have had an impact on Russia's growth, though the exact amount is difficult to measure and subject for debate. The sanctions against Russia must be working because Russian officials really want the sanctions lifted, and Putin's key point at the G20 summit in November 2020 was lifting sanctions. This is before he invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Kind of outdated, but still the same. With Iran, U.S. sanctions has put Iran's economy into a deep recession, with Iran's gross domestic product shrinking 9.5% in 2019. Unemployment was 16.8% in 2019. Iran's principal source of revenue of oil exports and crude oil productions plummeted in 2019. Iran's currency, the Iranian rial has lost 50% of its value against the U.S. dollar. Inflation for Iranian households was up 42% according to the Consumer Price Index. Food and beverage prices were 61% above normal, like meat products 116%, and tobacco 80% were all above normal. As a result of these high prices, there are long lines at government-subsidized grocery stores, especially for rationed meat. I mean, they were working. Besides U.S. sanctions, the people of both countries do want a change in their governments. For example, Alexei Navalny was pushing for change of leadership in Russia. It's just sad that he died. With 20% of Russians living below the poverty line and Putin building billion-dollar mansions for himself, Navalny wanted a Russia where it was free of tyranny and corruption. From jail on social media, he was able to produce tens of thousands of Russians in more than 100 He was able to produce tens of thousands of Russians in more than 100 cities across Russia to protest Putin's leadership, even with the fear of harsh arrest tactics by Russian police. All of these protests took place in the middle of winter, and even Yakustik, I'm not saying that right, I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. The coldest city on earth, the protesters in Yakustik protested in 45 degrees below zero. Navalny said that the Majority of Russians were with him, but they fear the Russian government and what it will do to them if they protest against Putin. I mean, he was trying to change Russia. Then they arrested him, poisoned him, and now he's passed. At least his wife is, trying to do good and trying to do what she can to help, the Russian people. With Iran, it experienced its deadliest political unrest since the Islamic Revolution 40 years ago in 2019. When Iran raised petrol oil by 50%, the protests began. Iran did this to cope with economic sanctions reinstated by the U.S. when it abandoned the nuclear deal the previous year. The unrest promoted a bloody crackdown by the security force that led to 1,500 people dead, and an internet shutdown across Iran lasted 5 days. This protest was leaderless and was fueled mostly by grassroots anger over inflation, unemployment, and widening inequality. Despite the outbreaks of unrest, the Iranian government has managed to stay in power by using a combination of restrictions on opposition figures and repressive actions. It's just, I know, the Iran people, the Russian people, North Korean people in general, just like Superman, all humans have the capacity for good. It's just, yeah, I'll just leave it there. It's just people that have gone through child adversity, for some reason seek power so that, they can either hurt people the way they were hurt or control everything so they won't be hurt again. They get a little bit of power and like I was saying before, they expand. I need more power. Yet they're not happy. They're just miserable people, paranoid. There's this Twilight episode with Peter Falk, the guy from Columbo, and he played Castro. I forget a Castro-like person in the show, and he takes over the country. He starts killing people, and then he sees this mirror, and the mirror shows his 4 soldiers, his 4 friends that are supposed to be his allies, and the mirror shows them all trying to kill him, so he kills them all, and now he's completely alone, and the mirror shows what dictators are at that level. They're just paranoid all the time. The fear, the anxiety that they're going through. For what? Just I have power. It won't happen to me. Yeah, it will. Because there's no transitioning government. It's just that person until they die. It's just sad. Child adversity it does so much damage to the brain. And then they think that like a person cheating or doing drugs or doing alcohol, gambling, that distraction will help, but it doesn't. They need to know the problem. I say, I have that problem, and then when they have the problem, it's almost like G.I. Joe. Knowing is half the battle. You know you have the problem, and then you can fix it. It takes a lifetime to fix it, or, if you can, depending on how good your resilience is. It's possible. Everything's possible. I'm sorry, I'm just going. That video's going on again. In Russia, they have a population of 146.2 million, and experts attribute the population shrinking because of the pandemic, migration decline, and low birth rates. In Iran, they have a population of 83 million, and the experts say that their country will have one of the oldest elderly populations by 2050. if its growth rate remains the same. So what? This shows that Russia and Iran are dying in a way. If both countries do not do something about their population growth, then their population, as with their economy, will shrink. Eventually, their economies will collapse. An aging population cannot sustain an economy because they will die off sooner than later. This makes these two countries vulnerable now and very vulnerable in the future. This is why immigration is so important. Duh. Jeez. Immigration, equality. Oh my God. Also, you don't want to make the population of these countries desperate. When the population of any country gets desperate, then they can radicalize by forming gangs and terrorist organizations. When a population gets like this, then they will almost believe and do anything to help themselves get out of this desperate situation. If you can throw in propaganda and a charismatic leader, then the desperate population will embrace Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party to help them. The situation just gets worse. It's just, this desperation to a corrupt dictator can be traced back to any time by just reading a history book. So true, so true. So what? To prevent future wars with these countries like Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, and the desperation that the people will be in, then you have to begin by bleeding the country before the propaganda and the charismatic leader comes onto the scene. If you bleed the people from Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, or any country, like in Africa, South America, North America, Asia, Oceania, Antarctica, if it ever comes back to not being a frozen tundra, it's just a frozen wasteland. I mean, anything is possible. Sorry. Just proceed. I lost my place. If you bleed the people from Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, you have to promise the people a better life in the form of Lamana Plus, freedom, happiness, and God-given structure, purpose in life, a job, a microloan, the ability to take care of themselves and people without help. Take care of themselves and their family without help. Independence, the hand-holding. You handhold them for a while until they get their independence. It's just like raising a child. You help them for a while, then they're off and on. With their adults, all they need is some hand-holding for a while until they understand past the learning situation, until, oh yeah, I get where I am. I trust my environment. I'm safe. So now I can perfectly execute my purpose in life, which is I want to help my people. I want to help establish a business. I want to help my family. I want to, once they have the security and they have the freedom of understanding, then they can go, then, be independent. Then hand-holding stops and they're off on their own. With Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, you only have to bleed a fraction of the population to have a good effect on the implosion of the country. After the country implodes and the leaders are on trial, then you have to give the country back to the people. Once the country is given back to the people, then the U.S. can ask this country to vote on a measure in order to become a state of the U.S. or be left alone. If the country wants to be left alone, then the U.S. will monitor that country to make sure they don't put in another dictator. If this country wants to be a state, then they can be educated in Lamana Plus, educated in prevention in healthcare, educated in prevention in economics, education in prevention in justice. The prevention in justice and the prevention in healthcare are next, later chapters. Put in democracy. This is really important. Put in democracy stress tests, as all described before, to prevent corruption and to incorporate Dr. King's dream of equality for all. These tactics can be used against any country on earth, but it first has to be studied thoroughly in studies. Again, we are all humans that are 99.99% the same. We all want equality and this can begin now. The last thing is another idea to prevent war. I know this is not the best idea because of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and it will probably never be used in real life, but it can be a deterrent to war, so this is why I put it in the paper. This idea is to prevent war with China and Russia by putting nuclear weapons in Taiwan and Ukraine. China has wanted Taiwan for decades, and Russia is desperately trying to incorporate Ukraine into its borders after pretty much losing their war with Ukraine. Putin and Xi will not stop until they get their way. They are both 70 years old, and in my opinion, they are both looking for a legacy to leave behind as propagandists, great leaders for their alternative history. This is probably why they're working together to achieve their goals in conquering these lands. It's just so sad. It's so sad. They're so old, and yet they want what they can't have. Just like it's almost like, yeah, just leave it there. They just want what they can't have. Since North Korea has achieved nuclear status with its own nuclear weapons, then the Western countries have left North Korea alone for the most part. Now North Korea is heavily sanctioned, and Western countries do display their military might with war games when North Korea launches their missiles or tests a nuclear bomb underground. But North Korea is pretty much safe because nuclear weapons would be used if any country like the U.S. fought them. Nobody wants this because millions of people would be dead, and the economies of those countries would be devastated. In other words, there's too much fear to cross that line with the use of nuclear weapons. This is why other countries like Iran would like to have nuclear weapons. The U.S. can help Taiwan and Ukraine by putting their own nuclear weapons in these countries. The U.S. would be in charge and manage these nuclear weapons only. The point is that this will prevent China and Russia's ambitions from acquiring these countries by force. It would save countless lives and their economies on both sides by playing it by. It would save countless lives and their economies on both sides by playing into the fear of not wanting a nuclear war. Once the war with Ukraine is over, and Ukraine once the war with Ukraine is over, and Ukraine once again achieves its independence from Russia, then Putin will try to build up his military once again and go after Ukraine again. Putin wants his legacy to build Russia back to what it was before the collapse of the Soviet Union. Putin is 7 years old, so he is desperate to achieve this pretend legacy before his age gets the best of him. Xi is under the same delusion as Putin. He wants to rebuild China by retaking Taiwan. Xi is 7 years old also, and is desperate to achieve this pretend legacy before his age gets the best of him too. The U.S. has said it will defend Taiwan from China. If Putin and Xi did go to war with the U.S. with nuclear weapons, then their delusional legacy would be shattered. Everything that they schemed, murdered, and worked so hard for would be gone. They're the ultimate predators. God. Just, God. Almost like psychopaths or sociopaths. Well, psychopaths don't have empathy. Sociopaths do. So, I don't know. I'm just rambling. Sorry. So hard. I have no evidence of it. So, I'm just... Don't take what I said. Everything that they've schemed, murdered, and worked so hard for would be gone. This is why putting nuclear weapons in Ukraine and in Taiwan will prevent these delusional men, Putin and Xi, from achieving their delusionary legacy by playing into the fear of preventing a nuclear war. How long will the nuclear weapons be in Taiwan and Ukraine? There are two options here. The first option is that Ukraine and Taiwan could be a state in the United States. When these two countries become a state, then they would be able to preserve their culture and language and be part of the universal culture, like in a Type 1 civilization, as I explained before. They would be protected in the United States and would never face a possible invasion from China or Russia again. Plus, the individuals in these countries would have to learn to be happy, be part of the Le Mans Plus, use preventive psychology, find God, etc. The second option is to bleed Russia and China in the hopes that their economies would collapse, and then the U.S. can give the people back to their country, as I explained before. If these countries are given back to the people, then China and Russia could have the option of joining the U.S. and becoming a state, like with Ukraine and Taiwan. They too could preserve their culture and language and be part of a Type 1 civilization in the U.S. I'm not going to lie, but China and Russia will be extremely mad for this move by the U.S. to put U.S. nuclear weapons in Taiwan and Ukraine. They will almost certainly put sanctions on the U.S. for this move. The U.S. will survive because China and Russia need our economy, the European economy, to grow and thrive for their delusional legacies to come true. Again, this move will save countless lives and their economies on both sides. Hopefully, it will deter war in order to help the rest of these populations in these countries to join the U.S. and become a Type 1 civilization. Again, it's these nuclear weapons, Cuban Missile Crisis, so... I don't know if it'll work, but, these are just ideas. Dr. King's dream of a place for equality for all applies to the 10 billion people by 2050. This is why Le Mans Plus is so important to understand and to be trained in. If the work is done, then this person can stay and become an American citizen. This policy should be applied to DACA residents, illegal residents, refugees, and legal residents. For everyone to have equality, equity has to be established first with everyone For everyone to have equality, equity has to be established first with everyone equal under the law. Last paragraph. I'm screwing up again. At least I'm consistent. No special privileges. Lastly, before equity can be established, prevention has to come first so that everyone can be trained in Le Mans Plus. Once this is done, then America to the world will achieve Dr. King's dream for equality for all. Yeah. Ich, ni, san, shi, go. Kuju, konnichiwa, laloon, oui, oui. Hola, buenos dias. We all went together. De nada.